Fall Asleep with Enola, the Cat That Guards the Grave. Chapter 1: The Cat That Guards the Grave. The village of Hollingford was small, peaceful, and rather predictable, one of those quaint, picturesque English hamlets that seemed untouched by the hustle of modern life. Its cobblestone streets twisted through clusters of thatched cottages, and the church bell tolled once a day with the same punctuality as the rising sun. No one would have ever expected anything to disturb the tranquility of this village, except, perhaps, the occasional mystery that Enola Holmes might stumble upon, as she so often did. On this particular evening, Enola found herself on the edge of the village, her boots crunching softly on the gravel path that led toward the cemetery. The sky was an expanse of deepening blue, streaked with pink and gold from the fading sunset. The air was cool and crisp, the kind that hinted at an approaching autumn. Enola loved moments like this, moments where time seemed to slow down, and everything felt balanced. She had come to visit the grave of her late mother, Enola Holmes, the woman who had instilled in Enola the belief that women could be more than society allowed them to be. Enola had vanished years ago, leaving Enola to fend for herself, and though Enola had spent her youth solving mysteries and making a name for herself, she still felt the pull of her mother's disappearance, the questions that had never been answered. But this time, Enola was not here to brood over the mysteries of her mother's past. She was here because of a strange occurrence that had been disturbing the peacefulness of Hollingford in recent weeks. The villagers had been whispering rumors of a cat. Not just any cat, but one that seemed to haunt the cemetery, appearing at night, sitting atop graves, staring with its wide, unblinking eyes at anyone who dared venture near. No one knew where the cat had come from or who it belonged to. It didn't seem to have a name. And yet, it had become a subject of great concern for the villagers. Some believed it was a sign of bad luck, others said it was the ghost of someone long deceased come back to watch over the dead. Regardless of what it was, it had become an obsession for the locals, who claimed it was guarding something, or someone, in the cemetery. And so, here Enola was, standing at the gates of the cemetery, her sharp eyes scanning the rows of headstones. She had come to investigate. The villagers' superstitions were, in her experience, often rooted in something far more mundane, a missing piece of the puzzle that, when uncovered, revealed the true story. She didn't believe in ghosts or omens. But she did believe in uncovering the truth, no matter how strange or unsettling it might seem. Enola pushed open the wrought iron gates, which creaked in protest, and stepped into the cemetery. The air felt cooler here, heavier somehow, as though the weight of the past pressed in on her from all sides. She walked between the tombstones, her eyes constantly scanning the ground, the trees, and the shadows, looking for any sign of the cat or any clue that would explain why it had become such an obsession in this quiet village. As she moved deeper into the cemetery, a sudden rustling noise caught her attention. She froze, listening intently. The sound came again, a soft, steady rustle, like something moving through the underbrush. She turned her head toward the source and saw, standing on a grave in the far corner, the cat. It was a sleek, black creature with eyes as bright and green as emeralds, staring at Enola with an unblinking intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. The cat's fur was shiny, its posture regal as it perched atop the gravestone, its tail flicking lazily in the evening air. For a moment, Enola simply stood there, studying the animal. There was something oddly familiar about it, something about the way it carried itself. It wasn't the kind of cat you'd find in a typical household, it had an air of mystery, of quiet power, as though it had been watching the village for longer than anyone cared to admit. The cat blinked once, slowly, and then it turned its head toward a nearby gravestone. Enola followed its gaze and saw, with a start, that the grave the cat was perched upon belonged to someone named Aloysius Barrington. The name meant nothing to her, but the placement of the grave, along with the cat's obvious interest, seemed significant. She stepped closer, her boots making soft imprints on the damp earth. The cat did not move, nor did it make any sound. It simply watched her, its gaze unyielding, as if daring her to come closer. Enola wasn't one to shy away from challenges, and with a measured breath, she took another step toward the grave. "Are you guarding something, my feline friend?" she murmured, half to herself. "Or are you just keeping watch?" The cat's green eyes followed her every movement, its tail twitching in the growing evening chill. Enola crouched down beside the grave, her fingers brushing the cold stone. As she leaned in closer, she noticed something unusual, a small, folded piece of paper tucked between the gravestone and the earth. It had been hidden there, almost as if it had been deliberately placed. Enola's curiosity piqued. She glanced back at the cat, which was still watching her closely, before she reached down and carefully pulled the paper free. She unfolded it with great care, knowing it could hold something important. The note was written in a hurried hand, the ink smudged in places as though the writer had been in a rush or perhaps nervous. The words, however, were clear. "The key is buried beneath the stone. If you seek the truth, look to where the cat sleeps." Enola's pulse quickened. A key? The mention of the cat, along with the cryptic message, made her wonder if this was no ordinary grave, or perhaps no ordinary cat. She folded the note back up and tucked it into her coat. The cat had moved slightly, shifting its position on the gravestone, as if it knew she had found the message. "The key is buried beneath the stone," Enola muttered to herself. The words repeated in her mind like a chant. She stood and glanced around the graveyard, the shadows stretching long as the sun finally dipped below the horizon. It seemed clear now that something hidden was waiting to be uncovered. But what exactly was it? And why had the cat, this peculiar, watchful creature, become its guardian? Enola's mind began to race. She had her first clue, but there was much more to this than a hidden key. The cat, the grave, the strange note, this was no ordinary mystery. It was the start of something far deeper, something that, she was certain, would reveal itself only if she was brave enough to follow it to its conclusion. With a final glance at the cat, which was now perched in a nearby tree, Enola straightened her coat, her eyes narrowing with determination. She would uncover the truth behind this grave and the cat that guarded it, no matter how strange or dangerous the journey might be. And with that, Enola Holmes set out into the encroaching darkness, ready to chase after whatever secrets the village of Hollingford had hidden beneath its quiet surface. Chapter 2: Secrets Beneath the Stone. The cool evening air settled over Hollingford as Enola Holmes made her way back to the village. The distant hum of the countryside at night, the rustling of trees in the breeze, and the occasional hoot of an owl were the only sounds that accompanied her thoughts. The cat's eyes still lingered in her mind, those bright emerald green orbs that seemed to pierce through the fog of confusion surrounding the grave. Her thoughts circled back to the cryptic note she had found tucked beneath the gravestone of Aloysius Barrington. The message was clear enough: the key is buried beneath the stone. If you seek the truth, look to where the cat sleeps. But what did it mean? What key was buried under the stone, and why had it been hidden with such secrecy? And why, of all places, was the cat guarding this grave? As Enola approached the village square, the first tendrils of evening fog had begun to creep in, shrouding the stone buildings in a soft, ghostly haze. She could feel the weight of the mystery pressing in on her. She needed answers, and she knew that there was no one else who could solve it except her. The authorities would dismiss it as a superstition, the villagers would chatter, and the rest of the world would forget. But Enola Holmes knew better. She was no stranger to mystery, and this one felt important, urgent, even. And so, as she walked into the small, cluttered bookshop near the village square, her mind already set on the task ahead, she greeted the shopkeeper with her usual blend of polite efficiency. "Good evening, Mr. Green," Enola said, her eyes scanning the narrow aisles of the shop, lined with books of every shape and size. "I'm looking for anything on local history, perhaps a few records on the village's founders." The old man, Mr. Green, adjusted his spectacles and gave her a knowing look. "You mean the graveyard," he said softly, as if uttering the words would bring some ancient curse into the room. Enola nodded, pressing her lips together. "Yes, the cemetery. I'm investigating something, and I need more information on the local history, particularly about the founding families." "Well, you'll find no shortage of ghost stories in that regard," Mr. Green muttered, heading toward a dark wooden shelf at the back of the shop. "It's always the same with this village. Whispers of the past, ghosts of those who don't want to be forgotten." Enola's mind drifted to the note she had found. "The key is buried beneath the stone." She was certain that whatever the note referred to, it had to do with the past, with something hidden in plain sight, beneath the layers of time and myth. "Do you have any records on the Barrington family?" Enola asked, her voice sharp with focus. "The Barringtons?" Mr. Green stopped and turned. They were one of the oldest families in Hollingford. Old money, of course. But that was a long time ago. They've been gone for generations. The last of them, a young man by the name of Aloysius Barrington, died in the late 1800s. No one ever speaks of them much anymore. They're forgotten. Enola's eyes narrowed. "But I'm not looking for family trees. I'm looking for something more specific. Perhaps something connected to the grave itself." Mr. Green hesitated. "You mean the one at the back of the cemetery? The one with the strange markings?" Enola's heart skipped a beat. "Yes," she said. "What do you know about it?" The bookshop keeper stared at her for a moment, his face unreadable. Then, after a long pause, he sighed and shuffled toward the back of the shop. From beneath a stack of dusty volumes, he retrieved an old, weathered book. He set it down in front of Enola with a thud. "This might help," he said, his voice low. "It's a history of the village, locals call it the Hollingford Almanac. You'll find a chapter on the Barringtons, but it's complicated. And there are stories in here, Miss Holmes, that might not be what you expect." Enola opened the book with careful hands. It was thick, with yellowed pages, and it had the scent of a bygone era. The section on the Barrington family was shorter than she'd hoped, but there was mention of an unusual family burial plot. Her finger traced the passage. The Barrington family graveyard, once a place of great prominence, was known for its peculiarities. Rumors of strange happenings surrounded it, the most notable being the disappearance of Aloysius Barrington's cousin, Sophia Barrington, who was said to have died under mysterious circumstances. Some claimed to have seen her ghostly figure wandering the graveyard at dusk. The family plot is now largely forgotten, but there are those who believe the cat that often roams the cemetery is a guardian, a protector of the family's secret. Enola's eyes widened. Sophia Barrington. The name had an echo to it, like a whisper from the past trying to reach her. Her mind raced, piecing together the fragments. The cat was not just a superstition. It was tied to the Barrington family, and somehow it was connected to the key that lay beneath the stone. She closed the book and turned to Mr. Green, her expression resolute. "I need to visit the grave again." The following evening, as twilight began to settle over the village, Enola made her way back to the cemetery. This time, she was prepared. She had learned enough to know that the grave of Aloysius Barrington wasn't just any burial site. There was something hidden there, a secret waiting to be uncovered. The cat was waiting again, perched upon the same gravestone, its eyes gleaming in the low light. Enola approached cautiously, her senses sharp. The creature didn't flinch as she drew closer. It merely watched her, as if it knew she was the one who had come to unearth the truth. She knelt before the grave of Aloysius Barrington, her fingers brushing the cold stone, and then, she noticed something she hadn't before, a subtle indentation, barely visible to the naked eye. She ran her fingers along it, following the contours of the marking, when she felt something shift. The stone groaned under her touch, and with a small push, it moved. Beneath the stone was a small, hidden compartment, no larger than a matchbox. Enola's breath caught as she carefully pried it open. Inside, wrapped in a scrap of cloth, was a small, brass key, old, but perfectly crafted, with a familiar engraving of a cat on its surface. The key. The one the note had spoken of. Enola felt a thrill run through her, but the excitement was quickly tempered by the weight of what this discovery meant. This key was not just a relic, it was part of a larger mystery. A mystery that had remained hidden for generations. And now, she had the first real piece of the puzzle. As the cat leapt down from the gravestone, brushing past her in a soft, fluid motion, Enola knew one thing for certain: she was no longer just solving a local mystery. She was uncovering a secret that had been buried with the dead, and it was one that would change everything she thought she knew about the past. Chapter 3: The Secret Behind the Key. The discovery of the key had sent a jolt of excitement through Enola, but as she held it in her palm, she felt a sudden, creeping sense of unease. The brass was cold, and the engraving of a cat on its surface seemed to pulse with an odd, almost sinister energy. It was not just a key, it was a symbol, a message hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to understand its meaning. Enola's fingers lingered on the engraving, her mind racing. The cat, she thought. It was the key to everything. But why had it been hidden away in Aloysius Barrington's grave? And what, exactly, was it supposed to open? As the evening air began to cool, Enola stood, carefully slipping the key into her coat pocket. She glanced at the grave one last time, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her. This wasn't just a mystery, it was a thread in a much larger tapestry, one that spanned generations and perhaps reached beyond Hollingford itself. With a final look at the cat, which had silently padded away into the shadows, Enola made her way back toward the village. Her thoughts were already turning to the next step in her investigation. She had to learn more about the Barrington family and their mysterious connection to the grave, the key, and, of course, the cat. The next morning, Enola found herself at the local library. The sun had risen early, casting a golden light over the village, and the streets were already bustling with activity. But Enola had little interest in the mundane world around her. Her focus was entirely on the mystery that had consumed her thoughts. The library was small and musty, the shelves crammed with old books that had not seen a new reader in years. She made her way to the local history section, where a collection of dusty tomes on Hollingford's past lay stacked haphazardly on a wooden table. Enola pulled out a heavy volume titled The History of Hollingford, from its founding to present day, and began flipping through the pages. She skimmed through sections on the village's founding families, its traditions, and its secrets. The Barrington family, as Mr. Green had mentioned, was one of the oldest and wealthiest families in the area. They had been landowners and philanthropists, revered by the villagers for their charitable work. However, the further Enola read, the more perplexing the story of the Barringtons became. There were numerous references to a tragic loss, the death of a young woman named Sophia Barrington, the cousin of Aloysius. The book mentioned little else about her death, other than that it had occurred in the late 1800s and had been ruled an accident. No further details were provided. But the rumors surrounding Sophia's death had lingered. Some claimed she had drowned in the nearby river, others whispered that it had been something far darker, perhaps foul play. No one knew for certain, and the family had made efforts to keep the details quiet. Enola set the book aside and grabbed another volume titled Barringtons of Hollingford, a genealogical study. It was an old book, the pages yellowed with age, but it contained more direct references to the family's lineage. She opened it to the section on Aloysius Barrington. Aloysius was described as a man of great promise, though somewhat reclusive. He had inherited the family estate after his cousin's death, but he had never married, and his life had been marked by isolation. The book mentioned little about his personal life, except that he had been fascinated by the supernatural, particularly the study of local folklore. There were passing mentions of his interest in spirits and hauntings, and even a few lines about his supposed belief in the protective nature of the cat that roamed the cemetery. "Aha," Enola muttered to herself. The cat again. It seemed there was more to the creature's presence than just superstition. Flipping through a few more pages, Enola found a brief mention of a family secret. It was a cryptic sentence that was buried in a paragraph about the Barringtons' wealth and social standing. It read, "The Barringtons, although highly regarded, are also known to keep one of their greatest treasures hidden, a treasure that has been passed down through generations, guarded by those who walk in the shadows." Enola's brow furrowed. A treasure? The key she had found? It seemed too coincidental to be a simple trinket. Perhaps it was part of something larger, something hidden away for centuries. By the time Enola had finished combing through the volumes in the library, her mind was awash with questions. There was something more to this mystery than a simple graveyard cat or a long-lost family treasure. There were forces at play, hidden truths, buried secrets, that had been locked away for far too long. As she left the library, the cool afternoon breeze tousled her hair, and Enola paused in the village square. Her eyes scanned the familiar surroundings, the market stalls, the chatter of the villagers, and she felt the familiar stirrings of unease. The cat wasn't just guarding a grave. It was guarding something much more important, and the key she had found was part of the puzzle. But what was it that had been hidden for so long? And why had the Barringtons gone to such lengths to keep it buried? Enola's mind raced as she walked back to the cemetery, the weight of the key heavy in her pocket. She was determined to uncover the next piece of the puzzle, no matter where it led. As dusk began to fall, Enola found herself standing before Aloysius Barrington's grave once more. The cat had not appeared yet, but Enola felt its presence nearby, as if it were watching her from the shadows. She knelt down, inspecting the gravestone once more, her eyes scanning the markings and the inscription for anything she might have missed. Suddenly, something caught her attention. Near the base of the stone, there was a faint etching, a small symbol, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. It was the image of a cat. But this time, it wasn't just an engraving, it was a symbol, one that seemed to pulse with an energy of its own. Enola's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just an ordinary gravestone. It was a marker, a key to something much larger. She stood and glanced around. The cat was nowhere to be seen, but Enola knew that the answer lay within this grave. The symbol, the hidden key, the treasure, everything was coming together, piece by piece. She pressed her fingers against the engraving, and to her surprise, the gravestone shifted slightly, revealing a hidden compartment beneath it. With a sharp intake of breath, Enola pulled open the compartment, and there, lying beneath the stone, was another object. This time, it was a small, ornate box, made of dark wood and bound with brass. Enola hesitated for a moment before carefully lifting the box from its resting place. Her pulse quickened as she turned it over in her hands. The lid creaked open with a slight tug, and inside, she found a rolled-up parchment, tied with a thin piece of leather. She unrolled the parchment slowly, her eyes scanning the words as she read them aloud to herself. The key to the treasure lies beneath the gaze of the cat. Only when the truth is unlocked will the shadows reveal the path forward. Enola's breath caught in her throat. The cat had been guarding more than just a grave. It had been watching over a secret, a treasure that had remained hidden for generations. But what was the treasure? And why had it been kept from the world for so long? Chapter 4: The Cat's Secret. The chill of the evening air seemed to grow thicker as Enola stood before the grave, the small wooden box clutched in her hands. The words on the parchment echoed in her mind, the key to the treasure lies beneath the gaze of the cat. Only when the truth is unlocked will the shadows reveal the path forward. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting the cat to appear again from the shadows, its emerald eyes gleaming in the moonlight. The village of Hollingford was eerily quiet now, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze. The silence was heavy, oppressive even. And with it came a sense of unease, a nagging feeling that she was getting closer to a truth that might be too dangerous to uncover. Enola studied the box closely, her fingers tracing the brass binding. There was no doubt in her mind now, this was no ordinary grave or ordinary key. The Barrington family had hidden something beneath this very cemetery, something that had been kept locked away for generations. And the cat, with its watchful eyes and constant presence, was its guardian. As Enola turned the box over in her hands, she saw something strange, an engraving on the bottom. It was small, almost imperceptible, but there was no mistaking its meaning. A cat, just like the one that had appeared by the grave, was etched into the wood. The symbol was identical to the one on the gravestone, and Enola's heart skipped a beat as the realization hit her. The cat wasn't just a symbol, it was the key itself. She set the box down on the ground and carefully began to examine the engraving. Her mind raced as she thought of the cryptic message, Only when the truth is unlocked will the shadows reveal the path forward. What did that mean? Was there more hidden beneath the gravestone? And why had it been kept secret for so long? Enola pressed her fingers against the engraving of the cat, feeling a slight shift beneath her touch. With a soft click, the box's lid creaked open. Inside was a single, weathered piece of parchment, no larger than a playing card. The paper was old, frayed at the edges, and Enola handled it with great care, her eyes scanning the words as she unfolded it. The message was written in a hurried, almost frantic hand. To those who seek the treasure, beware. The key you hold is not just a path to riches, but a path to something far darker. Beneath the cat's watchful eyes lies a secret that has been buried for centuries. The treasure can only be unlocked by the one who understands the balance between light and shadow. But remember, all who have tried to claim it have met with ruin. The treasure is both a gift and a curse. Choose wisely. Enola's mind swirled with the implications of the message. A treasure, yes, but not just any treasure. A curse, as well. It seemed the Barrington family had been hiding something far more dangerous than anyone could have anticipated. She paused for a moment, absorbing the weight of the warning. A gift and a curse. That could mean anything. Perhaps the treasure was something far more powerful than gold or jewels. Perhaps it was a secret, a piece of knowledge that could change everything. Her fingers tightened around the parchment. There was no turning back now. She had uncovered the key, and now she had to see this mystery through to the end. But she wasn't naive. There was something dark at play here, something that the villagers were too afraid to even speak of. Enola knew that the next step was to learn more about the family's secret. The key had unlocked a small piece of the puzzle, but it was only the beginning. There had to be more clues hidden throughout Hollingford, and Enola would find them. The next morning, as the village stirred to life, Enola made her way to the small shop on the edge of the village. It was run by Mrs. Travers, an elderly woman who had lived in Hollingford for most of her life. Mrs. Travers had seen the village change over the years, and Enola suspected that she knew far more about the Barringtons than she let on. The shop was a cluttered affair, filled with shelves of odds and ends. Old books, dried herbs, jars of pickled vegetables, and strange trinkets lined the walls. The air smelled of dust and lavender, and Enola's eyes scanned the room, searching for anything that might shed light on the mystery she was investigating. "Good morning, Miss Holmes," Mrs. Travers greeted her from behind the counter, her voice warm but tired. "What brings you here today?" "I'm looking for information," Enola said, her voice steady. "About the Barrington family. And about the graveyard." Mrs. Travers's eyes flickered with unease, but she quickly masked it with a smile. "Ah, the Barringtons. Those old stories never seem to fade, do they?" Enola's eyes narrowed. "I'm not looking for ghost stories. I'm looking for facts." "What do you know about their history?" Mrs. Travers hesitated, her fingers nervously twisting the edge of her apron. "The Barringtons were a proud family, Miss Holmes. Wealthy, influential. But they didn't just keep to themselves, they were obsessed with the occult. Superstitions, rituals, things most people prefer to forget. They believed in the cat, you know." Enola leaned forward, intrigued. "The cat? You mean the one that guards the graveyard?" "That's right," Mrs. Travers said in a hushed tone. "It was said to be a protector. A spirit of some sort. The Barringtons believed it was the guardian of their family's secrets. They even made offerings to it, or so the rumors go." "Offerings?" Enola's curiosity deepened. "What kind of offerings?" Mrs. Travers lowered her voice even further, as if she feared someone might overhear. "No one knows for sure. Some say they left food for it, but there were whispers that the cat was more than just a spirit. It was said to have been part of the Barringtons' rituals, a way to protect their wealth, their power. But after Sophia's death, the cat disappeared for a time, and the Barringtons' fortune started to dwindle." Enola felt the weight of the mystery press against her chest. The cat wasn't just a guardian, it was tied to something much darker, something that the Barringtons had desperately tried to hide. But what had happened to Sophia? And why was the family so protective of their secrets? "You said their fortune started to dwindle after Sophia's death," Enola pressed. "What happened to her? Why was her death so mysterious?" Mrs. Travers looked around nervously, as if expecting someone to walk in and hear their conversation. Sophia's death was strange. People said she had been acting odd in the weeks leading up to it. Talking about seeing things, hearing voices. Some say she found out something she shouldn't have. Something that the family didn't want her to know. Enola's pulse quickened. Something that the family didn't want her to know. What had Sophia uncovered? And why had it led to her death? "I need to know more," Enola said, her voice resolute. "Do you have any records of her death? Any correspondence, anything that might give me a clue?" Mrs. Travers hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I may have something. It's in the back, in an old chest. But I warn you, Miss Holmes, some things are better left untouched." Enola stood up straight, her eyes gleaming with determination. "I've never shied away from a mystery, Mrs. Travers. I'll take whatever you have." Chapter 5: The Chest of Secrets. The small shop at the edge of the village smelled of dust and lavender, and Enola could feel the weight of her next steps pressing down on her as Mrs. Travers led her toward the back of the store. The elderly woman moved slowly, her footsteps light despite her age, and her hands trembled slightly as she fumbled with a set of old, rusted keys. "I told you, Miss Holmes," Mrs. Travers said, glancing over her shoulder. "Some things should remain buried. The Barrington secrets, they're not something the village is meant to remember. People have tried to uncover them before, and it's never ended well." Enola nodded, her gaze never leaving the chest Mrs. Travers was about to open. She could sense the gravity of the moment. Something was hidden in that chest, a truth that had been locked away for far too long, and she was determined to uncover it. Mrs. Travers unlocked the chest with a creak, revealing stacks of yellowed papers and old leather-bound journals. She lifted a bundle of papers from the top, carefully blowing off the dust. Enola's breath caught when Mrs. Travers handed her a small bundle of letters, their edges frayed with age. These are Sophia's," Mrs. Travers whispered, her voice barely audible. "The ones she wrote in the months before she died. She was different then. People said she was possessed by something, or haunted, but I believe she found something her family didn't want her to know." Enola took the letters, feeling a sense of solemnity settle over her. She unwrapped the twine that bound them and unfolded the first letter. The handwriting was neat but frantic in places, as though the writer was trying to hold on to something slipping through their fingers. She read aloud to herself. The whispers are getting louder. I hear them at night, just as I did when I was young. They say I must leave, that I am not safe here anymore. But I will not leave. I must find the truth, no matter the cost. The family will not tell me what they've hidden. But I know it's in the graveyard. I know it is there. The cat knows it too. It watches me, and it waits. I can feel it. I am so close. Enola's pulse quickened as she read the words. Sophia had known something hidden, something the family was desperate to protect. The cat was no ordinary creature, it was somehow involved in the mystery, and Sophia had been drawn to it, compelled to uncover whatever secret the cat guarded. She read the next letter. I have found it. Beneath the stone, beneath the gaze of the cat, lies something that no one was meant to know. I cannot speak of it, for I fear my words will be twisted. I must write this now, in case I am silenced. The treasure is not what it seems. It is not a thing of wealth or beauty. It is something far darker. I must go to the graveyard again. The cat will lead me. Enola felt a chill run down her spine. The treasure. It was something darker than she had imagined, something far more dangerous. Sophia had been close, so close to uncovering the truth, and yet she had written as though she knew there was no going back. The message was clear. The cat had been guarding more than just a grave, it had been guarding something ancient, something that had to be kept hidden. What is this treasure? Enola murmured to herself. What could it be? Mrs. Travers, who had been watching silently, spoke up, her voice full of fear. The family tried to bury it, Miss Holmes. They tried to bury everything about it, but it always finds its way to the surface. There are things that are better left forgotten, things that the Barringtons should never have meddled with. The treasure, it's not gold or jewels. It's power. Dark, ancient power. And it's been buried for a reason. Enola's mind raced. She had uncovered part of the truth, but it wasn't enough. There was still so much she didn't know, so much that had been hidden by the Barrington family and the villagers who feared what the truth might reveal. I need to go back to the cemetery, Enola said, her voice firm with resolve. There's more there. I can feel it. The cat will lead me to it. Mrs. Travers' face paled, and her hands trembled as she gathered the papers. Be careful, Miss Holmes, she warned. The cat doesn't just guard the graveyard. It guards something much darker. If you seek the treasure, you may find yourself face to face with something far worse than you can imagine. Enola nodded, slipping the letters into her coat. I'm not afraid of the darkness. But I will be careful. By the time Enola reached the cemetery, the sun had already set, casting long, shadowy silhouettes across the rows of graves. The air was thick with the scent of earth and decay, and the silence felt oppressive, as though the very ground was holding its breath. She moved slowly through the graveyard, her footsteps soft on the path, her eyes scanning for any sign of the cat. She wasn't sure why she felt drawn here, why the cat's presence had become so important to her investigation, but she knew it was essential to uncovering the final truth. As she approached the grave of Aloysius Barrington, Enola paused. The cat was there, just as she had hoped. It sat atop the gravestone, its green eyes gleaming in the moonlight, fixed on her as though it had been waiting for her all along. The creature blinked slowly, as though acknowledging her presence. Enola stood still, her breath steady, and waited. The cat didn't move, but as she stepped closer, she saw something new, a faint, unnatural glow around the base of the gravestone. It was subtle at first, but it grew stronger the closer she got. It was as if the stone itself was alive, pulsating with an energy that Enola could feel in her bones. She knelt down before the gravestone, her fingers brushing the cold stone. As she touched it, the glow intensified, and the stone shifted beneath her touch. There was a faint click, followed by the creaking of old, aged stone. With a push, the grave shifted open, revealing a hidden compartment below. Enola's heart raced. This was it. The treasure. The secret that had been buried for generations. Inside the compartment was another small box, similar to the one she had found before. She pulled it out carefully, her fingers trembling as she opened it. Inside was a collection of strange symbols carved into a black stone. The stone was smooth and cold to the touch, and as Enola held it in her hand, she felt a strange energy surge through her. The cat let out a low growl, almost as if warning her. Enola looked up, and the creature's eyes gleamed in the darkness. It wasn't just guarding the grave, it was guarding the stone. And the stone was the key. But to what? Chapter 6, Shadows of the Past. Enola Holmes stood alone in the graveyard, the cool night air swirling around her as she held the black stone tightly in her hand. It was smooth and cold, and the symbols carved into its surface seemed to pulse faintly with an energy she could feel beneath her fingertips. The cat, still perched on the nearby gravestone, watched her closely, its green eyes gleaming in the moonlight. Enola had uncovered something significant, a treasure buried beneath the grave of Aloysius Barrington, hidden away for centuries. But what was it? The stone felt heavy in her hand, not just with weight, but with a deep, unnerving sense of importance. Whatever this object was, it was linked to the Barrington family's darkest secrets. And now, it seemed to be drawing her further into the shadows of the past, a path she couldn't ignore. The cat let out a soft, throaty purr, as though urging her to continue, to learn more. It was as if the animal itself knew the stone's purpose, or perhaps, Enola thought, it was more than just a mere guardian. Perhaps the cat was a keeper of secrets, a silent observer of the mysteries that had long been hidden. With a steady breath, Enola slid the stone into the inner pocket of her coat. She knew that whatever was unfolding, whatever secrets were bound to this object, it was only the beginning. She couldn't stop now, not when she was so close to uncovering the truth. She rose from her crouched position and turned back to the gravestone. The cat's gaze never wavered, its unblinking eyes following her every movement. Enola's thoughts raced, piecing together the fragments of the puzzle. The cryptic letters from Sophia Barrington, the strange warning she had left behind, and the messages hidden within the gravestone itself. All of it pointed to something much larger than a simple family treasure. The question remained, what was the stone for? And why had it been hidden in the graveyard? Enola's gaze shifted toward the village in the distance. The fog was beginning to roll in, and the street lamps cast long, eerie shadows on the cobblestone paths. She could feel the weight of the night pressing in, the urgency growing with each passing moment. She couldn't do this alone. She needed help. But not from just anyone. She needed someone who would understand the significance of the stone, someone who could help her decipher the mystery it held. Her thoughts turned to one person, the one person who had always been there when she needed him most, her brother, Sherlock Holmes. The next morning, Enola sent a letter to Sherlock, detailing everything she had uncovered in Hollingford. She described the cat, the key, the stone, and the cryptic messages from Sophia Barrington. She didn't want to burden him with the dangers, not yet. But she knew that he would have the mind to help her make sense of it all. It was time to reach out to him, even if it meant involving him in a mystery he might consider beneath his attention. While she waited for Sherlock's response, Enola turned her attention back to the village. She revisited the cemetery, examining the area around the grave more closely. There was a sense of unease that still lingered in the air, an energy that she couldn't shake. As she paced near the grave, she found herself drawn once again to the gravestone of Aloysius Barrington, staring at the cryptic symbols etched into the stone. Something wasn't right. Enola crouched beside the gravestone and ran her fingers along the engraved markings. They were intricate, almost like a code. But to what end? Could they be connected to the stone she had found? She took out the black stone again, aligning its symbols with the markings on the gravestone. They seemed to match, but in a way that didn't make immediate sense. She felt the pull of the graveyard, the cat still watching her from the distance. As if the very atmosphere of the cemetery was alive with history, secrets embedded deep within the soil. Enola's mind spun with the possibilities. Was there something beneath the graveyard? A hidden chamber? A tomb? Or perhaps a relic of unimaginable power? She felt an instinct deep within her. She wasn't just dealing with an old family treasure. This was about something far older, something buried for reasons that had yet to be fully revealed. The Barringtons had guarded it for generations, and now, it seemed that she had become a part of its story. That evening, Sherlock's reply arrived. The letter was brief but precise, his handwriting as neat and meticulous as ever. Enola. I received your letter with interest. Your discovery is, as you have noted, highly unusual, and I advise you to take the utmost care in your investigations. The stone you describe sounds familiar in a most disconcerting way. Somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I recall a reference to similar symbols. I will arrive in Hollingford tomorrow evening to examine the situation further. Until then, refrain from taking any unnecessary risks. Yours, Sherlock Holmes. Enola exhaled slowly, relieved. She had expected as much from Sherlock. His sharp intellect would be invaluable in cracking this mystery wide open. But the warning to take care had not escaped her notice. She could sense the weight in Sherlock's words. Whatever this mystery entailed, it wasn't something to be taken lightly. The next evening, as the fog crept in once again over Hollingford, Enola stood at the entrance of the cemetery, waiting for Sherlock. The dim light from the village lamps barely pierced the mist, creating an atmosphere that felt like a page out of a ghost story. When Sherlock finally arrived, his tall figure emerging from the fog like a shadow, Enola felt a surge of relief. His presence was both reassuring and unsettling, reassuring because she knew he was the key to solving the puzzle, but unsettling because she knew the darkness of the mystery had only just begun to reveal itself. Sherlock, Enola said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need you to see something." Without waiting for a response, she led him to the grave of Aloysius Barrington, her hand resting on the stone. Sherlock surveyed the area with a quick, sharp glance, his eyes narrowing as he took in the symbols on the gravestone and the stone she had found. "This is no ordinary grave," Sherlock muttered, his tone sharp. "And the symbols you've uncovered, they are part of something far more intricate than you realize. Whoever buried this stone wanted it kept hidden." Enola nodded, watching Sherlock closely as he examined the grave and the surrounding area. He had always been able to make connections that others missed, and she trusted his instincts more than her own. "There's something beneath this grave," Sherlock said suddenly, his eyes gleaming with insight. "But I'll need to examine the stone further. We may be dealing with something far older than even the Barringtons could understand." Enola's heart raced. The truth was within their grasp, and Sherlock's mind would be the key to unlocking it. Chapter 7: The Path Beneath the Grave. The moon hung low in the sky, casting pale silver light over the cemetery. The fog had thickened, swirling around the gravestones like ghosts of the past, and the air felt charged with the weight of untold secrets. Enola stood beside Sherlock Holmes, watching him as he crouched near the gravestone of Aloysius Barrington, his keen eyes scanning the intricate symbols etched into the stone. Sherlock's fingers brushed lightly over the surface, a careful and deliberate touch. His brow furrowed slightly as he murmured to himself, examining every detail. Enola stood back, her breath coming in short, quiet bursts as she waited for him to speak. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the distant call of an owl. "It's as I feared," Sherlock said finally, straightening up. His sharp gaze flicked to Enola, and there was an intensity in his eyes that made her stomach tighten. "These symbols are part of a complex system of codes. They don't just mark the grave, they're a key. A key to something hidden beneath this cemetery, something far more significant than we imagined." Enola's heart skipped a beat. "Beneath the cemetery? You mean there's something hidden down there? Another tomb, perhaps? A vault?" Sherlock nodded, his eyes never leaving the gravestone. "Possibly. Or something even more dangerous. The symbols match references I've come across in older texts. These are not just random markings, they are part of an ancient system used to protect valuable or dangerous objects." Enola's mind raced. A dangerous object? That would explain the secrecy, the cat's watchful eyes, and the hidden messages Sophia Barrington had left behind. But what exactly was the treasure? And why had the Barringtons gone to such lengths to keep it concealed? "I've found something," Sherlock said suddenly, pulling a small, flat object from his coat pocket. It was a tiny, brass tool, sleek and precise, the kind of instrument Sherlock had used in his many investigations. He worked it into a hidden seam at the base of the gravestone, applying a light but firm pressure. Enola held her breath as the stone gave a soft, echoing click. There was a moment of stillness, the air thick with anticipation, before Sherlock gave a satisfied nod. The gravestone shifted slightly, revealing a narrow opening beneath it. Enola's eyes widened. "You did it. There's something down there." Sherlock turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "The question is, what is it? And why was it hidden so carefully?" With no further hesitation, Sherlock reached into the opening, pulling out a small, intricately carved wooden box. It was old, the wood weathered and darkened with age. There was no lock or clasp, but the moment Sherlock touched it, the box seemed to pulse with a faint energy, as though it were reacting to his touch. Enola watched in silence as Sherlock turned the box over in his hands. The cat, which had been watching them from the shadows, began to move closer, its green eyes gleaming in the moonlight. It stopped just a few feet away, its tail twitching as it studied the box in Sherlock's hands. "I wonder if this is it," Enola said, her voice barely a whisper. "The treasure the Barringtons were hiding. The thing Sophia wanted to uncover." Sherlock glanced at the cat, his sharp mind already piecing together the connections. "It's likely. The box seems to be connected to the symbols on the gravestone, and the cat seems to be guarding it. Whatever is inside, it is something that has been kept hidden for generations." With a decisive motion, Sherlock opened the box. Inside, resting on a bed of velvet, was a small, black stone, almost identical in shape to the one Enola had found earlier. This one, however, had more markings on it, symbols that Enola could not immediately recognize. The stone was smooth, but there was an odd energy about it, like it was pulsing with something ancient and powerful. "What is it?" Enola asked, leaning closer to inspect the stone. "What does it mean?" Sherlock studied the stone carefully, turning it over in his hands. His eyes narrowed as he examined the symbols. "These markings, these are not merely decorative. This stone is a key, but not in the conventional sense. It is part of something far larger, something connected to a very old system of power. And it's clear that the Barrington family knew exactly what they were dealing with." Enola's heart quickened. "Power? What kind of power?" Sherlock's gaze was distant, his mind already spinning through the possibilities. "The kind of power that can change the course of history. This is no ordinary artifact. It's something far more dangerous, something that has the potential to reshape the very fabric of our world. And it's been hidden away for a reason." Enola looked at the stone in Sherlock's hands, her mind racing. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but there were still so many questions. The Barringtons had been protecting this secret for generations, but now it was in their hands. What was the true purpose of the stone? What kind of power did it possess? And why had the cat been guarding it all these years? The next morning, Enola and Sherlock sat together in the library of the Thornton estate, the morning sunlight streaming through the windows. Enola had retrieved her notes from the previous day, and Sherlock had pulled out a selection of his own materials, books, journals, and old papers he had brought with him from London. The two of them were deep in conversation, their minds racing through the history of the Barrington family, the strange symbols, and the cryptic messages from Sophia Barrington. But as they pieced together the clues, one thing was becoming clear: they weren't just dealing with a long-lost treasure. They were dealing with something that had the potential to alter the very course of history. "I've gone through the texts again," Sherlock said, adjusting his glasses and scanning the open page in front of him. "There are references to these markings in an ancient manuscript, a manuscript that is said to have been lost in the 1700s. The manuscript describes the Stone of Shadows, an artifact believed to have the power to manipulate time itself." Enola felt a chill run down her spine. Manipulate time? Sherlock nodded, his expression grim. Yes. The Stone of Shadows was said to be one of several ancient artifacts, each possessing extraordinary power. But the artifact was lost, and many believed it to be a myth. Until now. Enola sat back in her chair, her mind racing. The Stone of Shadows. The key to something greater. The cat had not only guarded the grave, it had protected an object of unimaginable power. We have to find out everything we can about this stone, Enola said, her voice steady with resolve. If it has the power to manipulate time, then we can't afford to let it fall into the wrong hands. Sherlock met her gaze, his eyes sharp with determination. We won't let that happen. But we must proceed carefully. There are those who would kill for such power. The weight of the mystery settled over them both. Whatever they were dealing with, it was bigger than they could have imagined. And it was only a matter of time before they would have to face the consequences of uncovering it. Chapter 8: The Cat's Warning. The gravity of what Enola and Sherlock had uncovered pressed heavily upon them as they sat in the quiet, sun-dappled library of the Thornton estate. Sherlock had relayed his findings with his usual precision, but the tension in the air was palpable. The Stone of Shadows, an artifact that could manipulate time, was not something they could simply study from the safety of the library. It was a dangerous relic, and the more Enola thought about it, the more she understood that they were not just dealing with a family secret or a forgotten treasure. They were dealing with a force that could reshape the very fabric of reality. Enola stood up, pacing across the room, her mind churning with questions. If this stone is truly capable of manipulating time, then the Barringtons were more than just a family obsessed with the occult. They were protectors of something that could change everything. Sherlock didn't answer immediately. Instead, he continued to sift through the old texts, his brow furrowed as he examined the ancient manuscripts. "You're right, Enola. The Barringtons didn't just hide the stone. They likely protected it from others who might have wanted to use it for far darker purposes." "The stone could change history," Enola said, her voice quiet but sharp with realization. "If someone were to use it, what would stop them from rewriting everything? Changing events, erasing people from existence, creating entirely new timelines?" Sherlock's eyes locked onto hers, his expression serious. "That's why the Barringtons kept it hidden. It's not just about wealth or power. The stone could unravel everything, including time itself." The room fell into a heavy silence. Enola felt the weight of their discovery like a physical pressure, a weight that seemed to push down on her chest. They couldn't keep this power locked away forever. And they certainly couldn't afford to let someone else claim it. "That's why Sophia was so determined to uncover it," Enola murmured, looking down at the stone they had discovered. "She must have known what it was capable of. She found it, and she was going to bring it to light. But she was trying to stop it from being used, wasn't she? She saw the danger, but she paid the price." Sherlock set down the book in his hands, his gaze distant. "Indeed. But we cannot assume that she was the only one who sought to uncover the stone's power. Others have been watching for centuries, and there are likely those who are still hunting for it." Enola's heart skipped a beat. She had been so focused on the Barringtons and the mysteries they had hidden that she had failed to consider the larger picture, the others. Who else was out there, searching for the Stone of Shadows? A sudden noise from the corner of the room interrupted her thoughts. Enola turned sharply, her instincts on high alert. The cat. It had silently entered through the open window, its sleek black form slinking across the floor with a predatory grace. It stopped in front of the stone, its bright green eyes fixed on the object with a strange intensity. "The cat," Enola whispered. "It knows something." Sherlock looked at the cat, his eyes narrowing. "It's not just a protector, Enola. It's more than that. I've seen this before. The cat is bound to the stone. It's a guardian, but it's also a warning. A warning to anyone who dares to seek the stone's power." Enola felt a shiver run down her spine. The cat had been guarding the grave, watching over the stone, and now it was here, in the room with them. It wasn't just a guardian, it was an integral part of the mystery they had uncovered. The cat let out a low, rumbling growl, its eyes never leaving the stone. Enola took a cautious step forward, her pulse quickening. "What does it want?" she whispered. "Why is it so focused on the stone?" Sherlock's voice was calm but laced with a quiet urgency. "It's trying to warn us, Enola. The cat knows that we're treading on dangerous ground. Whatever this stone is, it is not meant to be understood. It's a force far beyond anything we're capable of controlling." The cat's growl deepened, and for a moment, Enola thought she saw a flicker of something in its eyes, something more than just animal instinct. It was as if the creature knew the danger they faced, as if it were trying to communicate something to her. Enola's fingers twitched at her side, her instincts kicking in. "We can't ignore this, Sherlock. We have to understand it. We have to understand what it can do before someone else gets their hands on it." Sherlock's gaze softened, but there was a hardness in his eyes that made Enola pause. "We may not have a choice, Enola. If others are searching for the stone, and I'm certain they are, then we're already too late. There are people who would stop at nothing to claim it." As if to reinforce his words, a faint noise sounded from outside the library. A creak of the floorboards, a whisper of movement in the shadows. Enola's hand instinctively went to the pocket where she had hidden the stone. She had no intention of letting it fall into the wrong hands. Sherlock turned toward the window, his sharp mind already at work. "Someone is coming. We can't wait any longer. We need to leave. Now." Enola nodded, her heart racing. She wasn't sure who was approaching, but the sense of urgency was undeniable. The cat's growls grew louder as if it too sensed the impending danger. With one final glance at the stone, Enola followed Sherlock toward the door. The fog outside had thickened, curling around the village like a blanket, muffling all sound. Enola could barely see the shapes of the buildings as she hurried after Sherlock, her mind still spinning with everything she had just uncovered. They moved quickly, their footsteps soft against the cobblestones, as they made their way toward the edge of the village. "We need to find somewhere safe," Sherlock said, his voice low and urgent. "There are too many eyes watching us now." Enola's heart pounded in her chest. Who was after the stone? Who could have known about it? They reached a secluded cottage on the outskirts of the village, a place Enola had once frequented for quiet moments of reflection. Sherlock pushed open the door, and they stepped inside, the dim light of the single candle flickering in the corner. The cat had followed them, its eyes glowing brightly in the dark. It paced around them, never leaving their side, as though it were guarding them now. Enola turned to Sherlock. "What happens now?" Sherlock placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression more serious than Enola had ever seen it. We need to act quickly. We're not the only ones searching for this stone. And if we're not careful, the very people who are hunting it might come for us next. Chapter 9: The Hunter's Approach. The cold, damp air of the cottage hung around Enola like a veil, filling her lungs with each breath. The flickering candle cast long shadows on the walls, and the low growl of the cat, now seated by the door, only heightened the feeling of unease that clung to her. Sherlock paced restlessly across the small room, his mind already racing ahead, forming hypotheses, weighing every possibility. Enola could see the gears turning behind his sharp eyes, but he remained quiet for now, his thoughts too complicated to put into words just yet. For a moment, there was only the sound of the wind outside and the occasional soft hiss of the cat, whose gaze never wavered from the doorway. "Who is coming for us, Sherlock?" Enola finally asked, breaking the silence, her voice steady but tinged with an urgency she could no longer hide. "I've never seen you so unsettled. Who would want the Stone of Shadows?" Sherlock stopped pacing and turned toward her, his face shadowed with concern, something Enola rarely saw. "Enola, we're not just dealing with ordinary criminals or treasure hunters. Whoever seeks the stone has a much larger goal in mind, something far beyond simple wealth or power. The stone could grant the ability to alter time itself. The implications of that are catastrophic." Enola felt a chill run down her spine. The idea of manipulating time was already unsettling, but the thought of someone with enough power to rewrite history, alter events, erase lives, was more than terrifying. Who would risk such a thing? Who would want that kind of power? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sherlock's jaw tightened, and for the first time, Enola saw a flicker of something like fear in his eyes. There are many who have studied these forces, dark factions, secret societies. People who believe they can control time, bend it to their will. The Barringtons were right to hide the stone. If it fell into the wrong hands, nothing would remain the same. Enola stepped closer to him, the weight of his words settling heavily on her chest. "And the cat? Why is it still here? Why has it been following us?" Sherlock turned his gaze to the creature, which had now moved to the center of the room, its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "The cat is more than a mere animal. I suspect it's a guardian, bound to protect the stone and its secrets. It's likely been guarding the Barringtons for generations, an ancient symbol of their hidden knowledge. Perhaps the cat itself holds the final key to understanding the true power of the stone." Enola's thoughts swirled. Guarding the stone. Protecting the secrets of time itself. She could feel the weight of their discovery bearing down on them. Every step they took brought them closer to understanding the stone, but with that knowledge came a growing realization: they were no longer just investigating a historical mystery. They were caught in the crossfire of something far larger, something beyond their control. As if on cue, a sudden noise broke through the tension. A faint creak at the door. Enola's heart skipped a beat. Sherlock's eyes narrowed, his hand instinctively reaching for the hidden revolver he kept tucked beneath his coat. The cat's growl grew louder. The door to the cottage creaked open, a figure silhouetted in the doorway. Enola's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing to process the unfamiliar shape. The figure stepped into the light, and for a moment, Enola thought her mind had played a trick on her. It was a woman. Tall, with sharp features and an almost predatory grace. Her dark hair framed a face that, at first glance, seemed unremarkable, until Enola saw her eyes. Pale blue, almost silver, with an intensity that seemed to see through her. The woman's presence was magnetic, unsettling. And Enola could tell at once that this was no ordinary visitor. "I see you've uncovered it," the woman said, her voice soft but authoritative, like the calm before a storm. "The Stone of Shadows. You've been quite thorough." Enola instinctively stepped back, her mind working frantically to piece together this new threat. The woman had known what they had discovered. She knew about the stone, the symbols, and what it meant. But how? "Who are you?" Sherlock demanded, his tone sharp as he moved to stand protectively in front of Enola. His eyes, usually so composed, were now cold and calculating. The woman smiled faintly, a predatory glint in her eyes. "My name is Isabella Gray. And I'm here to take what's mine." Enola's heart raced. She didn't need Sherlock's analysis to see that Isabella Gray wasn't here to negotiate. She was here for the stone, and she would stop at nothing to get it. "You're too late," Sherlock said, his voice measured but tense. "The stone is already in our possession. We will not give it to you." Isabella's smile didn't fade. "Oh, I think you will. You may have the stone, but you don't yet understand its full power. And you're not the only one seeking it, Mr. Holmes." Enola stepped forward, her mind working in overdrive. "What do you mean? Who else is after it?" Isabella's gaze flicked to the cat, which had begun to growl louder, its back arched in warning. "There are those who will do anything to control time. They believe that with the stone, they can reshape the world, remake history as they see fit. And I'm afraid, Miss Holmes, that your little game is about to come to an end." Before Enola could respond, Isabella made a swift motion. There was a flash of light, a sharp, sudden force that struck Sherlock in the chest, knocking him back against the wall. He gasped, the wind knocked out of him, but his eyes remained focused on the woman in front of them. "Don't touch him!" Enola shouted, her heart thudding in her chest as she rushed forward to help Sherlock. But Isabella wasn't done. She took a step forward, her eyes gleaming with cold intent. "You don't understand, do you? You're standing in the way of forces much older and more powerful than anything your minds can fathom." Enola's pulse was racing, but her mind was clear. She had to act. The woman was dangerous, but she wasn't invincible. And if Enola had learned anything from Sherlock, it was that no one, no matter how powerful, was unbeatable. With a quick movement, Enola reached for the small brass key, the one she had found in the graveyard. It was the key to the stone. The key that Isabella seemed to covet. With a sharp motion, Enola held it out, the light from the candle flickering across the brass surface. Isabella's eyes locked onto it, a flicker of surprise passing over her features. "That's the key," Isabella whispered, her voice laced with disbelief. Enola's mind raced. "This is it. The only way to stop her is to use the key, to understand its power before she does." "Stay back," Enola warned, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "We won't let you have it." But Isabella's lips curled into a dangerous smile. "You don't have a choice, Miss Holmes. It's already too late." And with that, the cat let out a loud, chilling hiss, its eyes glowing brighter than ever. Chapter 10, the dance of shadows. The air in the small cottage was thick with tension. Isabella Gray's eyes were fixed on Enola and the key in her hand, her smile tight, almost amused. The cat, still perched in the corner, its glowing eyes locked onto Isabella's every movement, seemed to sense the rising danger. Its low growl rumbled through the room, but it didn't move closer. Sherlock was still recovering from the blow, but his sharp eyes never left Isabella. He pushed himself up slowly, his chest heaving slightly, but his posture was already alert, ready for whatever came next. Enola's fingers clenched tightly around the brass key, the only leverage they had left. The glow of the candle reflected off the key, casting long, flickering shadows on the walls. She knew the woman standing before them was dangerous, but Enola wasn't about to back down. Isabella's gaze remained on the key. "You have no idea what you're holding, do you, Miss Holmes?" she said softly, her voice smooth and confident. "That key isn't just a relic, it's a gateway. And you are standing in the way of something far more important than your little investigation." Enola stepped back, holding the key firmly between her fingers. "I don't know what your game is, but I won't let you take it from us. The stone is dangerous, and you want it for yourself." Isabella's smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. "Dangerous? It's only dangerous if you don't understand it, Miss Holmes. The stone has the power to change everything. History itself can be rewritten, people erased, events altered." Her eyes glittered with something dark, something almost possessive. The true power of the Stone of Shadows is not something to be feared. It is something to be wielded. Sherlock, now on his feet, wiped the dust from his coat and stepped forward, his face unreadable. "You're playing with forces you can't control, Isabella. This is beyond you. You don't understand what you're dealing with." She turned to Sherlock, her expression cold and calculating. "Oh, but I do, Mr. Holmes. More than you could ever imagine. The Barringtons were the first to hide the stone. But I will be the one to unlock its full potential. I'll make history bend to my will." Enola's heart pounded as the weight of her words settled in. This wasn't just about finding the stone, it was about something far more sinister. Isabella wasn't interested in history or treasure, she was after something much darker. She wanted to reshape the world, to control time itself. "And you think you're the right person for that power?" Enola demanded, her voice steady despite the dread creeping into her chest. "What makes you think you can control something like that? No one should have that kind of power." Isabella's eyes flicked to the cat, and for a moment, it almost seemed as though she was acknowledging something, perhaps the warning the cat had been giving. But it didn't faze her. She turned back to Enola and smiled, though this time there was something almost chilling about it. "Why do you think the cat is here, Miss Holmes? It's not just guarding the stone. It's waiting for the one who can truly harness the power within." Enola's pulse quickened. "You're not the one the cat is waiting for," she said, her words sharp. "The cat is here to warn us, to keep it safe from people like you." Isabella's eyes narrowed, but her smile remained. "You misunderstand, Miss Holmes. The cat doesn't just guard the stone. It protects the power. It knows that in the right hands, the stone can bring about something beautiful. The world can be remade, a perfect, balanced world." "By rewriting history?" Sherlock interjected. Is that really what you think will bring balance? Isabella's lips curled into a smile that wasn't quite human. Balance is not about maintaining the status quo, Mr. Holmes. It's about power, control. And I'll be the one to wield it. Enola's mind raced. There had to be something they were missing. The cat was no mere guardian, it was something more, something tied to the stone, to the very power it held. But what was that connection? Let's finish this, Enola said suddenly, her voice resolute. She turned to Sherlock, her mind working quickly. The stone, the key, they're connected. There's something more here. We just need to figure out how it works. Sherlock nodded, understanding immediately. We've been thinking of this as two separate pieces, the stone and the key. But perhaps they're part of a larger mechanism, something that requires both to activate. The key may not just open a lock. It may be the trigger for the stone's power. Enola's eyes flicked to the cat, and a thought crossed her mind. The cat, she said slowly, it's not just guarding the stone. It's guarding the way the stone can be used. We've missed something. Isabella's eyes flashed with anger. Enough talk, she hissed. You don't have the time you think you do. The stone will be mine, whether you understand it or not. She moved swiftly, crossing the room in an instant and reaching for the stone, her hand outstretched. But just as her fingers grazed it, the cat sprang forward, hissing loudly, its claws outstretched. The sound was deafening in the small room, and Isabella froze, her hand just inches from the stone. For a moment, there was only the sound of the cat's growl, echoing in the room. Isabella stepped back, her face pale with sudden realization. The cat? Enola murmured, her thoughts clicking into place. It's not just protecting the stone. It's controlling the power. It has to be. The stone doesn't activate unless it chooses. Sherlock's eyes widened. That's it. The cat is not just a guard, it's the key. The stone and the cat are bound together. The cat decides who can use the stone's power. Isabella's gaze flicked from the cat to Sherlock and then to Enola, her face twisted with frustration. You're wasting time, she spat. I will take what is mine. But Enola wasn't about to back down. The cat knows who should control the stone. And it's not you. As if in response, the cat let out another piercing growl, its body tense and ready to pounce. Isabella took a step back, her hand hovering near the stone but not daring to touch it again. Enola reached into her coat, pulling out the brass key. We need to work together to understand how this works. We have to find out what the cat is protecting, and why it's been guarding the stone all this time. Sherlock's gaze met Enola's, both of them understanding the urgency of their situation. The cat is more than just a warning. It's part of the stone's power. If we don't figure out how to unlock it, Isabella will take it, and we won't be able to stop her. Enola nodded, her mind sharp with determination. The stone, the key, and the cat, they were all part of a much larger mystery, a mystery that could not be allowed to fall into the wrong hands. Chapter 11, The Heart of Shadows. The cottage felt suffocating now, the walls closing in with each passing second. The air was thick with tension, and Enola could feel the oppressive weight of the Stone of Shadows, the cat's unyielding gaze, and Isabella Gray's relentless pursuit of the power hidden within the graveyard. The moment had arrived, and there was no turning back. The cat's low growl filled the room, its eyes gleaming with an intensity that matched the gravity of the situation. Enola stood, facing Isabella, with Sherlock beside her, his posture alert, his sharp eyes flicking between her and the cat. They had no choice now. The key, the stone, and the guardian had all come together, and the truth of their power was slowly being revealed. Isabella took a step forward, her movements calculated and controlled. The faintest trace of frustration lingered in her expression, but her determination was evident. "You don't understand," she said, her voice colder now. "You've been stumbling in the dark, trying to piece together a puzzle that doesn't belong to you. The stone is mine, it's always been mine. You can't stop me." Enola didn't flinch. The words hit her like a distant echo. She had heard similar threats before, but now, the stakes were higher. Much higher. "The stone is not for you, Isabella. It was never meant to be controlled. It's not just about power. It's about balance, and you're too blinded by your ambition to see that." Isabella's lips curled into a faint, mocking smile. "Balance? How quaint. Do you really think I haven't studied the stone, Miss Holmes? It's not just about altering time. It's about mastery over it. History is a fragile thing, a thread that can be snipped and rewritten. Why leave the world as it is, when I could reshape it?" Sherlock's voice cut through the growing tension, his words sharp. "What makes you think you can control it? The cat, the key, the stone, they are bound together. It's not an artifact for wielding. It's a power that chooses its master." Isabella's expression darkened. "And how would you know that, Mr. Holmes? You've never understood the true nature of the stone, or the cat." "But I will." She turned toward the creature, her eyes narrowing. "And I will unlock its potential. It's only a matter of time." The cat hissed, its back arched, its sharp green eyes narrowing in response to Isabella's words. Enola could feel the tension between them all, this strange, silent battle for control over something neither of them truly understood. Enola stepped forward, drawing Isabella's attention back to her. "You think the stone is yours, but the cat doesn't agree with you. It's guarding something, something beyond what you can fathom." For a moment, Isabella seemed to hesitate. The cat's growl deepened, vibrating through the room like a warning. Isabella took another step forward, but this time, her movements were slower, more cautious. She had begun to sense what Enola was hinting at. The stone and the cat were tied together, in ways she hadn't yet understood. "Then let's see what it reveals," Isabella said, her voice steady, but there was a hint of uncertainty beneath the surface. "If the stone and the cat are bound together, then I will have both. And nothing will stop me." With a swift, calculated movement, Isabella reached for the stone. The cat lunged forward, its claws swiping at her hand, but Isabella was quicker. Her fingers brushed the stone's surface, and for a split second, everything seemed to freeze. The air became still. The shadows in the room deepened, growing darker, as if the very walls of the cottage were absorbing the light. Enola's heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't let Isabella claim the stone, not now, not when they were so close to understanding its true nature. The cat was right there, its eyes glowing brighter, its growl vibrating through the room like a warning bell. It knew something Enola and Sherlock had missed. With a sudden surge of clarity, Enola stepped forward, her fingers brushing against the brass key she had kept hidden in her coat. The cat's eyes locked onto hers, as though acknowledging her understanding. Enola realized now what the key was for. It wasn't just about unlocking the stone, it was about unlocking the true potential of the stone with the cat's help. Enola lifted the key and placed it next to the stone, aligning the two. The moment the key touched the stone, the air seemed to shift. A low, resonating hum filled the room, vibrating through the floor and into Enola's bones. The cat's growl stopped suddenly, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Its eyes locked onto Enola's, its gaze intense, as if it were testing her resolve. Isabella froze, her hand still outstretched toward the stone. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice tight with disbelief. The symbols on the stone began to glow, faint traces of light spiraling outward like wisps of smoke, swirling in intricate patterns. Enola felt a rush of energy, something ancient and powerful, filling the room, as if the very fabric of time itself was bending before them. The cat, now completely still, watched as the stone seemed to come alive. And then, in a flash of understanding, Enola knew what had to be done. The stone was not just a key to the past, it was a key to the future. It could reshape the course of events, but only if the balance between the cat, the stone, and the key was maintained. The cat wasn't guarding the stone because it was dangerous, it was guarding it because it held the power to preserve history. To keep things as they were. But that power wasn't meant to be wielded by anyone. Not Isabella, not Enola, and not Sherlock. It had to remain untouched, hidden, so that no one could abuse it. "I understand now," Enola said, her voice steady, despite the chaos swirling around them. She reached out, touching the stone with the key still in her hand. "We can't control it, Isabella. This power isn't for anyone. Not even you." Isabella's eyes flashed with fury, but there was something in Enola's gaze, something resolute, that made her pause. She knew, somewhere deep inside, that Enola was right. The stone was not something to be controlled. Not by her, not by anyone. And the cat was a reminder of that. The symbols on the stone began to pulse one final time, brighter and more powerful than before. The cat's eyes gleamed with ancient wisdom, and Enola realized that the moment had come to make a choice. With one final, determined glance at Sherlock, Enola raised the key and the stone together, and the light from the symbols surged outward, enveloping the room in a brilliant, blinding flash. Chapter 12: The Collapse of Time. The room was filled with light, a blinding, ethereal glow that seemed to seep into every corner, stretching out like tendrils of smoke, enveloping everything in its path. Enola had never seen anything like it. The key and the stone, both glowing now with an ancient energy, pulsed together, their combined force vibrating through the floor beneath her feet. For a moment, everything seemed to slow, the world outside the cottage fading away, until there was nothing but the overwhelming hum of power and the flickering, twisting shadows around them. Enola held her breath, her heart pounding as she stood frozen, feeling the surge of energy swirling through the room like a tempest. Isabella was still standing, her hand outstretched toward the stone, her eyes wide with shock. The cat, which had been so still just moments ago, now paced around the glowing stone, its tail flicking in agitation, its green eyes locked onto Enola's with an intensity that made her skin crawl. The air felt thick, like the very fabric of reality was being stretched, pulling everything toward the center of this unearthly force. Enola didn't know how long they stood there, the hum of power filling the space between them. But she knew that something crucial was happening. The stone was revealing its true nature, its power to manipulate time itself. It wasn't just a key to history, it was a force that could reshape the world. And in that moment, Enola understood what had to be done. The cat wasn't merely guarding the stone, it was protecting the balance between time's flow. The stone, with the right key and under the right conditions, could unlock the ability to rewrite history. But it also had the potential to destroy it. The cat had always known this. It had watched over the stone for generations, ensuring that it would never fall into the wrong hands. Enola glanced at Sherlock, his face shadowed with a mix of determination and caution. His eyes met hers, and there was a silent understanding between them. The stone's power was not something they could control, no matter how badly Isabella wanted it. They couldn't let anyone, especially someone like Isabella Grey, have that kind of power. Not when the consequences could ripple through time itself, unraveling everything they knew. "We can't let her have it," Enola said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. Her hand tightened around the key. "If she gets the stone, everything will change. History will be rewritten. We'll lose control over the present." Sherlock nodded, his eyes narrowing. "We need to destroy it." "But how?" Enola asked. "We can't just break it, this stone, the key, they're part of something ancient. The cat's been guarding it for a reason." The cat, sensing their intention, let out a low, warning growl. Enola's gaze shifted to the creature, her heart pounding with the weight of the decision. It was clear now. The cat was not just a passive protector. It was tied to the stone in a way that was beyond her comprehension. "I think I know what we have to do," Enola said suddenly, the realization hitting her like a wave. She stepped forward, her fingers brushing against the stone once more. She closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself, feeling the weight of history pressing against her. She didn't know how, but she could sense it now. The energy of the stone was feeding off her, waiting for the right moment, the right choice. Sherlock watched her closely, his eyes flicking between the stone, the cat, and Enola. "What do you mean?" "The cat has been guarding this for a reason," Enola said, her voice low but resolute. "It's not here to let us control the stone. It's here to prevent anyone from using it to alter history. The stone can be sealed, locked away, but only if we understand the balance it holds. It's the key, Sherlock. The key to understanding its power isn't in controlling it. It's in protecting it." She turned to face Isabella, who had been watching them in silence, her face a mixture of frustration and confusion. "You don't understand, do you?" Enola said, her voice sharp. "You think you can use the stone to change the past. But it's not meant to be used by anyone. It's meant to remain locked away, preserved, so that no one, especially people like you, can rewrite history. The cat has been guarding it because it's the protector of time itself." Isabella's eyes darkened with anger, and she stepped forward, her voice cold. "You think you're better suited to make this decision? You're just children. You don't have the right to control history. The stone is mine, and I will use it to make the world how it should be." Enola's heart was pounding, but she didn't back down. She held up the key, aligning it with the symbols on the stone. As she did, the glow around the stone intensified, its power surging with an intensity that made the ground beneath them tremble. "No," Enola said firmly. "The power isn't yours to control. It never was." She pressed the key into the stone, and for a moment, everything seemed to pause. The hum of power grew louder, the light from the stone blinding as it pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Then, with a deafening crack, the stone shattered. Time itself seemed to stretch, the world freezing in an instant as the fragments of the stone dissolved into a fine dust, drifting through the air like particles of forgotten history. The key, still in Enola's hand, glowed briefly before it, too, faded into nothingness. For a long moment, there was only silence. Enola stood motionless, the weight of what she had done settling in her chest. The cat, which had been so fiercely protective of the stone, now sat still, its gaze locked onto her. It didn't move, but there was a quiet understanding in its eyes. Isabella, her face twisted with disbelief and fury, stepped forward, her hand reaching for the place where the stone had been. But all that remained was dust, the remnants of the stone that had once held such power. "You destroyed it," Isabella hissed, her voice filled with venom. "You have no idea what you've done. You've sealed the fate of us all." Enola's eyes met Isabella's, unwavering. "I didn't destroy it. I protected it. And I protected the world. The stone was never meant to be wielded by anyone. Not by you, and not by anyone else." Isabella's face contorted in rage, but the moment was fleeting. The power she had sought so desperately had slipped from her grasp, and there was nothing she could do to reclaim it. Sherlock stepped forward, his gaze steady and unyielding. "It's over, Isabella. The stone is gone. You've lost." The cat padded slowly to Enola's side, its tail swishing lightly, as if in approval. Enola watched it for a moment, her heart still racing. She could feel the weight of what had just happened. The world had shifted, but in a way that preserved the balance. History remained unchanged. The future was safe. But Isabella was still dangerous. Her greed, her desire for power, had driven her to seek the stone, and that hunger had not disappeared. "You will never understand," Isabella spat, her voice thick with venom. "The stone was a gateway. A way to bend the world to my will. You think you've won, but you've only delayed the inevitable." Sherlock's eyes were cold, his words precise. "The inevitable has been prevented. Now, you'll leave us alone." Isabella turned away, her figure disappearing into the shadows of the room. "This isn't over," she muttered, her voice fading. As the sound of her footsteps disappeared, Enola let out a long breath, her hand still gripping the space where the stone had been. The weight of the decision she had made pressed heavily on her, but she knew it had been the right one. The stone had been too dangerous, too powerful to remain in anyone's hands. It had to be destroyed, even if it meant risking everything to ensure it was kept safe. Sherlock placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice quiet but reassuring. "You did the right thing, Enola." The cat, now calm, rubbed its head against her hand, a silent thank you for preserving the balance it had worked so hard to protect. The mystery had been solved. The stone was no more. And yet, the world felt both lighter and heavier than it ever had before. Chapter 13, The Unwritten Future. The dust from the shattered stone of shadows hung in the air, a fine mist settling over the cottage, the fragments of history now lost to time. Enola stood still for a moment, her heart racing, the weight of the decision she had made hanging heavy in her chest. The cat, once a fierce and unyielding guardian of the stone, now sat quietly at her feet, its eyes soft, as if acknowledging the monumental act that had just unfolded. Sherlock remained by her side, his gaze sharp, though there was a slight, unspoken understanding between them that this was a victory, for now. Isabella was gone. For the moment, at least. The fury and desperation in her eyes had vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind a lingering sense of foreboding. Isabella had lost, but Enola knew better than to believe this was the end of the story. The power of the Stone of Shadows had not been destroyed lightly. It had been hidden for centuries, and there were still those who would seek it, those who would stop at nothing to reclaim it. "Do you think she'll return?" Enola's voice broke the silence, her eyes still fixed on the space where the stone had once been. Sherlock's expression was grim as he considered the question. "She will, eventually. People like her don't give up so easily. But for now, she's been thwarted, and that's something. The stone is gone. We have prevented the worst, at least." Enola nodded, but the unease didn't leave her. The cat's quiet presence at her side seemed to echo the uneasiness in her chest. It wasn't just about protecting the stone anymore. It was about the consequences of what they had done. The balance of time had been disrupted, even if only momentarily. "And what about the cat?" Enola asked. "What now?" The cat, still seated beside her, looked up at Enola, its green eyes gleaming in the dim light. It had no answers, only its watchful gaze. Sherlock gave a small smile, as if the cat were more of a riddle than a threat now. "The cat is a guardian of balance. That much we know," Sherlock said, his voice thoughtful. "It wasn't just guarding the stone, it was ensuring that nothing too dangerous could alter the course of history. Now that the stone is gone, the cat has done its job. But perhaps it's still here for another reason." Enola's eyes flicked to the cat, which was now moving slowly toward the open door, its tail flicking lazily behind it. It paused just inside the threshold, then turned to look back at them, as if waiting for something. "It's not finished," Enola said quietly. "The cat knows there's more to come. There's still something we don't understand." Sherlock raised an eyebrow. "You think so?" Enola took a deep breath. The stone was never just about altering time, it was about controlling it. And Isabella wanted to change the past. But what if we missed something? What if there was another reason the stone was hidden for so long? Sherlock's gaze sharpened. "You think there's more to the story? Something we haven't seen yet?" Enola nodded, her mind racing with the possibilities. The Barringtons didn't just protect the stone because of its power. They were trying to protect something else, something that could have been unleashed if it had fallen into the wrong hands. We need to understand that. We need to know what it was. The cat meowed softly, its eyes still fixed on Enola. It seemed almost as if it had understood her words. Sherlock was quiet for a moment, then he turned to Enola with an almost imperceptible smile. "I think you're right. Let's find out exactly what the Barringtons were hiding." The next morning, Enola and Sherlock set out to search the Thornton estate once more. The cat had led them out of the cottage, as if urging them to follow. They walked through the overgrown gardens and along the narrow paths toward the estate's old library, a place that had once belonged to the Barringtons, now abandoned and filled with the dust of forgotten knowledge. Enola was certain that the answers lay there, hidden in the papers, the journals, and the records that had been kept from the public eye. As they entered the library, the air was thick with age. Bookshelves towered around them, some sagging with time, while others seemed to be completely untouched. Enola's eyes immediately landed on a shelf at the far end of the room, one that seemed to call out to her, as though it held the key to everything. Sherlock walked slowly behind her, his eyes scanning the room for anything out of place. Enola reached the shelf, her fingers brushing the spines of old leather-bound books, when she found what she was looking for. An ancient, tattered journal, tucked away behind a row of dusty tomes. She pulled it out carefully, the weight of it surprising her. "This must be it," she whispered, her fingers trembling as she opened the first page. The handwriting was neat but faded, the ink almost completely gone in some areas. As Enola turned the pages, the entries became clearer. The journal belonged to Aloysius Barrington, and the entries were filled with cryptic notes, calculations, and symbols. But there was one passage that stood out. "The Stone of Shadows has a purpose. It was not meant to alter time, but to guard it. To ensure that history remains untouched, its flow unbroken. But when the stone is combined with the key, it opens the doorway to the other world, a place where time is malleable, and the balance between life and death is no longer certain. The cat guards this balance. Without it, the world would fall into chaos." Enola's breath caught in her throat. The journal confirmed everything she had suspected. The stone was not just a key to rewriting history, it was a key to a realm beyond time itself. A realm that, without the protection of the cat, could destroy everything they knew. Sherlock stepped up behind her, peering over her shoulder. The Barringtons didn't just protect the stone, they protected the balance between worlds. The cat was a guardian, not just of the stone, but of reality itself. Enola closed the journal with a quiet snap, her mind reeling from the implications. "We didn't just destroy the stone, Sherlock. We sealed the doorway." Sherlock nodded slowly. "And in doing so, we prevented a catastrophe. But the balance is delicate. There will always be others who seek to open that doorway again." Enola turned to look at the cat, which was now sitting quietly in the doorway, its eyes fixed on her. "Do you think the cat knew what we were doing?" she asked softly. Sherlock glanced at the cat, then back at Enola. "I think the cat has known from the very beginning. It knew that if the stone were destroyed, the doorway would close forever. But that doesn't mean the threat is gone. There will be others, like Isabella, who will stop at nothing to get what they want. But for now, we've done the right thing." Enola smiled faintly, but the weight of their actions hung heavy on her. The future was uncertain, and though the stone was gone, the mysteries of time, of history itself, remained. She looked at Sherlock, determination lighting her eyes. "We'll be ready for whatever comes next. Together." The cat meowed softly at her side, as if in agreement. Chapter 14: The Ghosts of Time. The morning after their discovery was quiet, but the weight of what Enola and Sherlock had done lingered in the air like the remnants of a storm. The cat, ever watchful, had returned to its place in the cottage, its green eyes shimmering with ancient knowledge. As Enola stood at the window of the Thornton estate, staring out at the mist-covered hills, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. The cat, the stone, the key, they were all linked in ways she still didn't fully understand. And though the immediate threat had passed, Enola knew this wasn't the end. They had sealed the doorway to the other world, yes. But how long could that seal hold? The power to manipulate time, to rewrite history itself, was no small thing. The forces that sought it out, people like Isabella Gray, were driven by a hunger that could not be easily sated. "We can't rest on our laurels," Sherlock said from behind her, his voice cutting through the silence. "There are those who will come for the stone, or for something like it, Enola. We've only stopped one part of the puzzle. There's still more to be uncovered." Enola turned to face him, her face set with determination. "I know. It's just," she hesitated, taking a deep breath. "I feel like we've only touched the surface of something much bigger." What did the Barringtons know? What was so dangerous about the stone that they had to hide it for centuries? Sherlock's eyes glimmered with the familiar intensity she knew so well. The Barringtons understood the balance between worlds. The stone wasn't just a powerful artifact, it was a conduit, a connection between this world and something else. Something beyond time. And we've closed that door for now. But who's to say that others won't try to open it again? Enola's gaze flicked to the cat, which was sitting perfectly still in the corner, watching them with an unreadable expression. The cat had been guarding the stone for centuries, but its role was far more complex than just a protector. It was as if the creature had always known what was at stake, had always understood the true danger of the stone, even before they had. "The cat knows something we don't," Enola said softly, her voice tinged with a sense of awe. "It's more than just a guardian. It's been protecting the balance of time. It understands." Sherlock's eyes narrowed slightly, his mind working through the possibilities. "I think you're right. But what does it understand?" "The cat's not just a passive observer, it's an active participant in the flow of time. It guards, but it also keeps watch over the fabric of time itself. If there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that we don't understand the full scope of what we've just disrupted." Enola stepped forward, her fingers gently brushing the edge of the stone's resting place on the table. "We sealed the stone. We stopped Isabella from rewriting history, from using the power of time. But what if it's not just the stone? What if the stone was only part of something larger, something that we've yet to uncover?" Sherlock gave a slight nod, as if confirming the thoughts that had been swirling in his mind. The stone was a catalyst. The real question is what it was a catalyst for. The Barringtons' journal mentioned the other world, and it hinted at a deeper power, one that exists outside of time, but affects it. Enola's heart raced as she thought about what that meant. Time itself was fragile, a delicate web that connected everything, stretching across the ages. If someone were to find another way into that web, what could they do? Could they tear it apart? Could they rewrite reality? The cat suddenly stood up and stretched, its tail flicking. Enola watched as it moved toward the window, its green eyes flicking toward the horizon. The creature was always watching, always alert, ready for something, though Enola still didn't know what. "We've disrupted something fundamental," Sherlock said, pulling Enola's thoughts back to the present. The stone was part of a system. The Barringtons knew it, and they feared it. And now, we have to figure out exactly what it was before someone else comes looking for it. Someone who might not be so willing to let the past stay buried. Enola felt the weight of the decision on her shoulders once more. They had stopped Isabella from using the stone, yes, but how long could they keep the balance? There were other forces at play here, ones that they hadn't even begun to understand. And if they didn't act quickly, the consequences of their actions could reach far beyond Hollingford. "We need to find out more," Enola said decisively. "The answers are out there, Sherlock. We just need to find them before anyone else does." Sherlock gave her a sharp look, his mind already working ahead. "There are records, the Barringtons' journals, their letters, their private papers. We've barely scratched the surface of what they left behind. And there are others, like Isabella, who are looking for the same answers." Enola turned toward the door, her resolve solidifying. "Then we'll find those answers first." The next few days were a whirlwind of investigation. Sherlock and Enola combed through every record they could find, piecing together the Barringtons' history, their involvement with the stone, and the cryptic references to the other world. The more they uncovered, the more it became clear that the stone wasn't just a relic from the past. It was part of something much larger, a force that transcended time itself. But as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, they were left with one haunting realization: the stone had been sealed for a reason. It was meant to remain untouched, kept hidden from the world. And now that it was gone, the doorway to the other world, the gateway to manipulating time, was still open. The forces that sought to control it would not stop. One evening, as Enola was returning to the cottage after another long day of research, the cat appeared before her in the garden. Its eyes glowed in the dim light, and it meowed softly, as if calling her toward the edge of the forest. Enola's heart quickened as she looked up at the stars. The cat had led her here before, and she knew this was no ordinary call. Something was out there, waiting. Sherlock joined her, his gaze following the cat's path. "What is it, Enola?" Enola's voice was steady but filled with the weight of what she knew. "The cat is leading us somewhere. It's time to find out what the Barringtons were protecting, and why the stone is just the beginning." As they followed the cat into the depths of the forest, Enola couldn't help but feel that they were stepping into a new chapter of the mystery, a chapter where the shadows of time itself would rise to meet them. Chapter 15, The Shadow's Edge. The forest was alive with sound, though not the usual rustling of leaves or the chirping of birds. It was quieter than that. More deliberate. Every step Enola and Sherlock took seemed to echo in the stillness of the night, the cat leading them with quiet precision down a narrow, twisting path, its glowing eyes never wavering from the darkness ahead. Enola's heart raced as they moved deeper into the woods. The air was thick with tension, and she could feel the weight of their mission more than ever. Whatever secrets the Barringtons had kept hidden, whatever truth the cat was guarding, it was all leading them here, into the very heart of the mystery they had spent so long untangling. "What do you think we'll find?" Enola asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Her footsteps were soft on the ground, and the world around them felt suspended, as though time itself was holding its breath. Sherlock's eyes were focused ahead, his expression unreadable. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "But I'm certain of one thing. Whatever it is, it's connected to the stone and the cat. We're at the edge of something far larger than either of us realized." The stone wasn't just about power. It was a warning, and this is where we'll either seal it for good or risk unleashing something that cannot be undone. The weight of his words settled over Enola. They had already destroyed the stone, sealed the doorway to the other world. But the cat's continued presence, its unyielding gaze, made it clear that there was more to be done. The Barringtons had hidden the stone for a reason, and perhaps the answers they were looking for weren't just in the past. Perhaps the final piece of the puzzle lay ahead. The cat stopped suddenly, its body tense, its ears pricked. It was staring at something in the distance, its eyes narrowing. Enola and Sherlock stopped, their own gazes following the cat's, but there was nothing to see, only the dense, shadowed woods stretching before them. "Do you see anything?" Enola whispered, but Sherlock was already moving ahead, his every sense alert. "No," he said softly. "But I sense it. This is the place." Enola could feel the hairs on the back of her neck rise as they stepped forward, the path now narrowing until they reached a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a stone circle, ancient and worn by time, its surface covered in moss and overgrowth. The stones were tall, each one carved with symbols that Enola recognized from the Barringtons' journal, the same cryptic runes that had surrounded the stone, the same symbols the cat had watched over. It was here, she realized. This was where it had all begun, and where it would end. The cat walked to the center of the circle, sitting down in front of a larger stone, its eyes never leaving Enola. As she stepped forward, Sherlock by her side, the ground beneath them seemed to hum with an ancient energy. "Is this the source?" Enola asked, her voice trembling slightly as she looked at the stones. Sherlock nodded. "This is the heart of it." The Barringtons' protection wasn't just about hiding the stone. It was about ensuring that this circle, this place, remained undisturbed. It anchors time. The cat isn't just guarding the stone, it's guarding the very balance of time itself. Enola's mind raced. So, this circle, this is the key to what the stone was protecting? Sherlock's eyes met hers, a look of understanding in his gaze. Yes. The stone was only one piece. The key was always here. The cat, the symbols, this place, they were always meant to guard the fabric of time. It wasn't just about rewriting history, it was about protecting the flow of it. The cat, still sitting perfectly still in the center of the circle, let out a soft meow, its tail flicking. Enola stepped forward, kneeling beside the stone, her fingers brushing the carvings. A sudden warmth spread through her, as if the very air around her had changed. "Do you think we've been chosen?" Enola asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Chosen to protect the balance? Sherlock was silent for a moment before answering. "I think the cat has always known. It doesn't matter who we are, Enola. What matters is that we understand what we're protecting. Time is not a force to be controlled. It's a thread that connects everything. The Barringtons understood that. And now, so must we." Enola stood slowly, the weight of their responsibility settling over her. She glanced at Sherlock, the understanding between them clear. They had solved the mystery, yes, but they had also unlocked something deeper. A duty. A commitment to preserving the balance that kept time in place. And in that moment, as the cat watched them, its presence more than just protective, more than just symbolic, Enola understood what needed to be done. As they left the clearing, the cat trotting silently at their heels, Enola felt a sense of finality, but also a profound realization. The stone had been destroyed, yes, but that wasn't the end. Time had always been the ultimate guardian, and they had only just begun to comprehend the depth of what they had uncovered. "Where do we go from here?" Enola asked, glancing at Sherlock, her mind still reeling from the discovery. Sherlock looked ahead, his expression thoughtful. "We continue. There will always be forces out there, Enola. Others who seek to control what cannot be controlled. But now we know how to protect it. Time itself must remain undisturbed." Enola nodded, her resolve firming. "And we'll be ready." The cat, now pacing just a few steps ahead, paused for a moment, looking back at them. Its green eyes gleamed in the fading light, almost as if to say one final, unspoken word. Enola smiled softly. "Yes, we'll be ready. The adventure may be over, but the mystery never ends. What lies beyond time's reach? What secrets will Enola and Sherlock uncover next? Follow Enola Holmes as she continues her journey to protect the balance of time. Subscribe for more mysteries, more secrets, and more thrilling adventures to come. Join us before time slips away.